Welcome back to the first day on 93 WIBC. It is Terry Stacy. My fellow citizens, I really feel like we are out of control. Truly, I think we've lost our minds. We have become rude and sometimes violent customers all across this country, on land, on sea, in the air. It's everywhere. And joining us now is Lisa Miller, a consumer marketing strategist in the great state of Texas. Good morning, Lisa. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Terry.
You've recently released some results from a survey, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. But first, do you think that this frustration among customers ultimately is coming from staffing shortages right now, or do you think it's something deeper?
I think it might be something deeper in the sense that I think we've been just so pent up for the year and a half and, haven't been able to do the fun activities that we're used to. And so I would say its expectations are high, but then patience is low. So I think it's kind of a complicated thing.
What happened, every day we're reading something that's going on in the air aboard planes. And is it different than what's happening in restaurants?
I think it's similar but different. But what's going on in restaurants, and you mentioned one thing already, is there is such a high frustration. About 43% of Americans are really frustrated with the short staff. And the other thing that they're kind of concerned about is rising prices. So about 66% of Americans concerned that prices are high. So if you think about people want to have a joyful experience and going out to eat, and then, they're kind of disappointed and frustrated. So I think that that's kind of the spark in a bad way, that kind of creates this bad behavior in restaurants.
Yeah. I mean, are you seeing it with your own eyes?
Most definitely. I think it's just, like I said, patience is just low. And people are just grumpy out there. And it's like, I think we've all forgotten about just human kindness and treating each other with respect. And absolutely, I see it definitely in Dallas where I am. And, we all are seeing it on social media and the news for sure.
Yeah. We're taking that frustration and we're in the cars driving frustrated. I mean, it is terrible. And I don't know that in my life I've seen quite this anger and division and just, as you said, no patience among our fellow citizens. So let's talk about this survey that you took. What did you ask participants in the survey? What did you want to know?
Well, I started this project, literally when the pandemic started, and I call it the Journey Back to Joy. And the reason I wanted to do this was I felt like, the only way to get to the other side of this was, through joy, not fear. And I wanted to track it to help businesses, get to the other side of it. So after all of, 35,000 consumers we've talked to over the last year, and what's happening is on the positive side, about 68% of Americans are actually saying, yeah, I am so ready to get back out there and get back to my normal activities. And then on the other side, you've got about 25% that are still kind of anxious and very anxious. So we've got these two groups going on. But what's different, as we all know, is this Delta variant is really just kind of putting the light back on the whole situation and driving some additional anxiety. And so about half of Americans today are very anxious about the Delta variant, and pulling back on their behavior. So it's just, again, unprecedented times and just this tension between joy and fear.
Yeah, and you say that this is a perfect storm that's brewing, and joy versus fear. What could the results from the perfect storm be for us?
Well, from a business perspective, that perfect storm that's brewing is on that front end. Those people that are very, very excited to be out there, they're most anxious or they're most concerned about those short staff issues and their favorite item not being there, prices going up. And so for them, it's like, it's just not worth it. So they're pulling back and not going as much because it's just not worth it. But on the other side, those very anxious people, they're also pulling back their visits because guess what? Those safety protocols, they're the ones really looking. And if anybody that's been out, social distancing, those safety protocols of wiping down things, even just hand sanitizers, those things have kind of unfortunately gone by the wayside. So those anxious people are like, I don't think I want to go out until that comes back. So that's the perfect storm that's brewing, both sides of that.
This is Lisa Miller, Senior Marketing Strategy and Innovative Consultant with over 30 years of experience. So do you see the light at the end of the tunnel where we may become, I mean, how do you go backwards and become civilized again after all this? And do you see that happening soon?
Well, what I'm definitely seeing, it's these little small touches, and it's really heartwarming. A couple things, today when you see bad behavior for customers, and then that goes out on social media, there's just this big outpouring of support, in a positive way for those servers that have been treated badly. So we're kind of remembering that, people are coming to the support of these frontline workers. But the other thing that I'm seeing that is such a positive sign, it's just little things like restaurants putting a sign out to say, hey, I know we're short-staffed, but please be patient and kind to my servers. And just, when you see something like that, it just makes you pause and go, yeah, we're all in this together. And that's the only way we'll get to the other side, is we've got to treat each other kindly.
Yeah. For you personally and the job that you have, what was the last year like for you?
Oh, for me personally, just in what I do, it was interesting. My clients in the restaurant business, hospitality, even just, all types of businesses, there's no playbook. And so I think the data that this study is providing is able to help businesses understand how to deal with these circumstances. The other thing, now that we have a year's worth of data, I call it being a student of the past. A year ago in July is when anxiety was actually the highest, during the summer months. Mm-hmm. So we can learn as business owners and brand stewards, we can learn and not, and pivot more quickly than we did a year ago. So that's what I hope to be able to provide, my clients and those in the business world. There's things we can learn from the past, as we face this Delta variant today.
Yeah, we've been talking about the staffing shortages and what that's been like, and trying to figure out what is the reason. Is it all the money that the government is giving people to still stay at home, versus is it people realized in the last year after they were laid off from a restaurant or a hotel that perhaps they'd go in a different direction, and just do something completely different, change careers? What do you think has happened? Is it all the above?
All of the above. And interesting, Terry, is that I am fielding a study right now to really tease that out. I haven't really seen any hard quantitative data to actually measure that, what you just described. And I think it's really important. Honestly, I feel like my next calling is going to be the Journey Back to Joy Work Edition, because as a society, we're going to have to figure that out and really understand what those barriers are. And yes, I think there are people that are making more money being at home, but I don't think that's the whole issue. I think there is going to be people reevaluating, just work-life balance, changing careers. And I think we have to quantify all of that to really understand how to get to the other side of that. It's going to be a lasting impact from the pandemic.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, we have about a minute left. Is there anything else from the survey, the study that you did, that you think is worth bringing to our attention?
Well, I just think that for business operators, we have to lead with joy, remind your consumers and your customers why customers fell in love with your brand in the first place. Lead with joy, but you have to reassure with safety. And I just encourage all business owners to really get back to those safety protocols and make sure that visible cleaning is there. It's important for us to protect us, but the consumers are really going to be watching for that. And then for the consumers, remind, we're all in it together, and just treat each other nicely and fairly. And, it doesn't make sense to make somebody cry, a server cry if, your food's late, you know. So I just think those are the two things that I'd ask, people to remember.
Yeah. All right. Great stuff. Lisa Miller, Senior Marketing Strategy and Innovative Consultant, over 30 years of experience. She's at lwm-associates.com. Thank you so much for sharing this information about your latest study. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Terry.